Hey folks, this is Kelani. There's an interesting system in our World of Warcraft which was introduced a little while ago now, back during Warlords of Draenor, with all of the new shiny garrison stuff which seemed super exciting at the time, but might have fallen a little flat by the end of that expansion. The introduction of mission tables was met with a wide range of reactions. I recall quite clearly the forum posts complaining about Warcraft turning into a Facebook game, where you play a little minigame with your followers, and that's about all there is to do. But I also remember the people who loved the idea of having a little army of followers to do their bidding. Quite a few players also became filthy rich from the lucrative gold missions, but overall the reception of missions, mission tables, and followers seems quite mixed. It didn't really help when they reset the entire board when they introduced the shipyard, which basically did everything the exact same way, except you needed new resources, so you had to start from scratch. Those feelings were brought through into Legion with the unveiling of the class halls and the new mission tables, with new followers and of course new missions for us to send our, this time smaller army, out into the world. We hadn't seen anything about new followers or mission tables in Battle for Azeroth, so the big question was whether or not this system would continue forward. Well, it seems like we might have an answer to that question thanks to data mining. There's some new information which points directly to mission boards being a part of the next expansion, with new followers, new abilities, and we assume new mini-game missions. Bear in mind that we're still working with an alpha client and this information is data mined, so everything is subject to change and might not reflect the finished product. I guess the first thing to talk about is whether or not this is a good thing that we might see missions and mission tables once again in a new expansion. I personally enjoyed the missions from the Warlords of Draenor garrisons for quite a while. It wasn't until things started to really slow down in Warlords that I got a little bored of them and just stopped sending them out altogether. I think they did an awesome job streamlining the system for Legion, reducing your champion count, making sure each one actually mattered somewhat, and giving you good incentives to keep up with your board. You might not like the fact that some of the earlier progression in Legion was time-gated behind missions, but it did create a break in those main quest lines for you to go do something else. Given another chance to reiterate and learn from the mission board experience in Legion, I think the dev team could do some pretty cool things with a new mission board system in Battle for Azeroth. I'm excited to see what they can come up with, but I hope they won't lock too much behind the mission boards. It's going to be a balancing game for sure. I wonder which way they'll decide to tip the scales. Do you force people to work through their mission boards and keep up with their followers to progress the main storylines, or do you keep them as a fun little side addition to the game? I guess we'll have to wait and see. It looks like they might end up being semi-important. In this screenshot we can see both Nathanos and the Zandalari Troll Princess stood around the supposed mission board. That tells me we might see the same kinds of storyline missions that we saw in Legion. We might end up being time-gated just a little bit, but what kinds of missions will we have to complete? In Legion it was almost always related to stopping the Legion, stalling the Legion, stealing from the Legion. What's the big picture this time? To start with, we'll all be exploring our starting continent, Zandalar for the Horde and Kulturas for the Alliance, so maybe our missions start out pretty small. Explore the Legion, help out the locals, and progress towards our all-out war for Azerite. After that I imagine we'll see some Horde vs Alliance missions, infiltrating the opposite faction's continent and cities, stealing Azerite information, and being generally sneaky. I think there's quite a bit of potential for a lot of fun missions this time around. Now, going into Legion, pretty much the entire system was reworked, from the way we gear up champions to how they counter certain threats. It seems like that's all going to change again going into Battle for Azeroth. We have a sneak peek at some of the new abilities and we can take a few wild stabs at how the threats and counters could end up working. We only have previews from the Alliance side at this point, but some of it is quite interesting. We have 3 types of special abilities so far. Gifted Technicians are adept at making devices, destroying devices, or making devices that destroy other devices. It seems like they might be our engineers of the mission tables. I'm not sure what these devices could be or what they could be used for, but it's probably a safe bet that the gifted technicians will be able to counter very specific threats relating to these devices. Master Infiltrators find targets, retrieve information, and apparently they look good while doing so. Sort of your fancy-pantsy spy guy who makes a show of things he probably should be keeping hidden. I wonder if the missions will have certain requirements instead of just being a variety of threats to counter. If we have espionage missions for stealing the opposite faction's secrets, I guess you'd want to send an infiltrator as opposed to a technician. The last special ability we have to look at is the Combat Specialist, which sounds more like what we used to with these missions. Lots of creatures to slaughter and destroy? Fantastic, send in the combat guy. There also seems to be a wide variety of troop types. Maybe we'll end up working with more troops and less champions this time around. Each troop type has their own special ability too. Ironforge Mountaineers are classed as Mountaineers and have the Mountain Guide ability, which increases success chance by 50% in the mountains. Covert Ops Technicians are classified as Technicians and have the Ultra Safe Transporter, which reduces mission duration by 50%. Darnasian Sentinels are classified as Sentinels and have the Night Vision ability, which provides clear vision in the darkest of nights. SI7 Operatives are classified as Operatives and have the Stealth ability, increasing success chance on stealth missions by 50%, and they don't incur a penalty, whatever that means. Rangari Scouts are classified as Scouts and have the Gift of the Naru ability, which restores your other squads on the mission to full combat readiness. And lastly, we have the Bloodfang Stalkers, classified as Stalkers, and they have the ability For the Alliance, which increases success chance by 15%, as well as their Two Forms ability, which increases success chance of stealth missions while in human form, and success chance of skirmish missions when in Worgen form. So there's some interesting points to glean from this information. All races of the Alliance are represented with the exception of the Pandaren, who are neutral, and the allied races who I guess don't trust us enough to send in the troops. Maybe we'll unlock those later down the line, but each race is sending in their own type of troop, which has very specific benefits. We can also get an idea of how the dev team might set up these missions. The Mountain Guide ability seems to suggest we'll have to deal with terrain restrictions or limitations, while Night Vision points towards the time of day being an important factor for some missions. The Stealth ability blatantly reveals itself as a tool to combat stealth missions. What other kinds of missions could be included alongside stealth? That's going to be really cool to find out. I feel like they could do a lot with that, but that might just end up being our typical counters. The Gift of the Naru ability suggests we will be managing health resources for our troops once again, and the Worgen one is a little weird. It sounds like we'll get to actually choose what form our Worgen troops take for certain missions. That could also be an interesting mechanic which could be expanded upon. It seems like we might get a lot of different bits and bobs to work with, which could end up making the new system a little complicated. Going from Warlords to Legion, I think things got much simpler, so I would be a little surprised if they decided to go back to a more involved complex system, seeing as Legion seemed to work out quite well. Sadly, our preview is quite limited. We don't even have any sample missions to take a look at, so it's all a guessing game at this point. We do, however, have a few champions to look at. There's only a handful, and once again it's Alliance only, but it seems like the champions will be pulled from well-known NPCs throughout the lands. Some of them we met through the garrison in Warlords. There's Thalin Dark Anvil, a Dark Iron Dwarf technician who was present during the garrison campaign in Warlords of Draenor. Kelsey Steelspark is a known technician who is the Rogue Order Hall Quartermaster. Bodrick Grey is an infiltrator who is also a member of SI7 and was a main Alliance quest giver in the Warlords garrison. And we also have John J. Keishan, who is a major character in Redridge Mountains and the Burning Steppes. In Battle for Azeroth, he will serve as a combat specialist, so it seems like quite a few old faces and even some old faces from the 1 to 16 leveling experience, so that's really cool. I can't wait to see who we get on the Horde side, my being more familiar with that side of this upcoming war. There's plenty of NPCs to pick from there, isn't there? It could be anything to do with Legion, anything to do with the garrison in Warlords, and I guess Mankrik is probably going to be in there somewhere. He's been following us for quite a while now. Who else could we recruit for our awesome adventures into the South Seas? Maybe a few well-known pirates or spies? They're sure to be handy when it comes to stealing all of the opposing factions' Azerite. If we do end up with mission tables, I bet a huge focus is going to be on Azerite, although that might be a given, considering the entire expansion seems to be focusing on Azerite, at least to begin with, until the old god stuff happens. But either which way this ends up, it looks like there's a high chance we'll see mission tables, missions, and a whole new roster of champions going into Battle for Azeroth. How do you feel about this datamined information? Are you excited to round up another little army, or are you a little tired of the mission system overall? Do you think we'll even get a mission system? Is this going to turn into something else? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.